In these times of uncertainty, it's all the more important that we keep collaborating, informing, and inspiring each other, so that we can be smarter and better tomorrow. Welcome to the Pakhuis de Zwijger livecast.
Good afternoon, Amsterdam, and good evening, Tokyo. Welcome to the 9th livecast of Infected Cities. These series are created by DutchCulture and Pakhuis de Zwijger. My name is Zoe Papaikonomou, and I am your host today. In this weekly series, we zoom in on different cities that are hit by corona crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic has an enormous impact worldwide on areas such as employment, healthcare, and social services. But this program will specifically zoom in on the cultural sector and look upon how cultural professionals are looking for creative and social solutions to the current pandemic. Today, we will talk about the impact of coronavirus in Tokyo. We will talk about how the pandemic is currently impacting local cultural institutions, the economy, healthcare, and more. We will also discuss which role local cultural initiatives may play in post-corona recovery. This program will be a mix of photographers, journalists, researchers, artists, creatives, and cultural workers. In the first part, we mainly look at the current impact and situation, after which we will delve deeper into cultural and creative responses. So, it's time for some general remarks for our audience. Thank you very much for joining us via live stream on Facebook or maybe the Pakhuis de Zwijger website. So it's definitely possible to participate. You can do this via Zoom. You can go to the chat and then chat amongst yourselves as visitors, but you can also ask questions if you have questions for one of our guests. And I will do my best to ask your questions for you, as many as possible, of course. So some short background info on Tokyo. The Tokyo metropole area has over 13 million inhabitants. And the latest corona numbers are that there are almost 19,000 corona cases detected in Japan, entire Japan, and of which are over 6,000 in Tokyo. In Tokyo, currently, over 300 people have died of the COVID-19 virus. So it's time to delve deeper into the current situation in Tokyo. We have 3 guests. 2 of them are zooming in from Tokyo, but one of them, Mrs. Tomoko Mukayama, is sitting next to me. Welcome very much. And we will talk later on with Kjeld Duits, Tokyo-based correspondent and photographer, and Koen Klinkers, who is an architect and urban planner. Tomoko, welcome very much. We are very happy that you are here. So can you tell us a little bit about your work, but also about your normal relations between Japan and the Netherlands? How often are you there and here, etc.?
Good afternoon. My name is Tomoko Mukayama. I am a pianist in first place. I make a dance piece, music theater. I make recently film. But my ground is performance, a stage. So I'm in performance art world, which I think be the most difficult, one of the most difficult field, and probably would recover very slowly. I have my agenda in my telephone, and I kept my calendar before the corona. So I have a little bit of like a double life now, because if corona didn't happen, there's the calendar next to we now. So actually last week I was in Tokyo, and we were supposed to have, you might say like smaller festival. It was called Super Tea Market. And this tea is my name, Tomoko, and also Tokyo. And actually, that was part of official cultural program for Olympic game, which is now postponed. We were actually going, as I say, we a lot of Dutch artists. So from Groningen, dance group Club Guy Ronnie, and Maison de Fort, they are the fashion designers too. We were supposed to be there together. So it's we had to cancel. We had to postpone. It's at this moment. Well, as you know, I think it's everybody's dealing with this because situation is changing all the time, and you keep changing your plan. And you cancel things, you postpone things, and you get new dates, new ideas, and which again has to change. So this is a situation. Now, very concrete problem is that, especially this performing arts, we have to push things like maybe half a year later, and the venues are full. And all the colleagues has different agenda. To put it together is very difficult. So it's and also in first place we don't know if we could really perform for normal audience.
Yeah, because of all the measures, of course.
Yes, now measures are getting a bit more easy in Netherlands, and probably from September it will be much better than now, but it's not guaranteed.
No, I can imagine that's very difficult, and I think the comparison you're making, that you have to work with several agendas all the time because everything is changing so fast. I think that goes for many people. We will definitely go into that a little bit further on in the program. So Kjell Duits also joined us, Japan correspondent who has lived and worked in Japan since 1982. We are very happy that you are here, and you will kick off the first part of this program by also sharing your insights and experience about the current situation in Tokyo.
Well, like you know, Japan was one of the first countries outside China to deal with the coronavirus. As you just mentioned, it still has a total of fewer than 20,000 confirmed cases, and it actually has about 1,000, just below 1,000 confirmed deaths. Compared with many other countries, that's quite low. Tokyo started to voluntarily close down from the end of March, and now Tokyo and Japan as a whole is opening up again. Businesses, museums, theaters, and even large theme parks like Tokyo Disneyland have reopened. If you don't know Tokyo and you would come to visit, everything would probably feel normal. The only thing is that pretty much everybody is wearing a mask. The difference with April is huge. On Sunday, April 5th, I took photographs in Tokyo's Shinjuku area, and you have already started showing them. One of Tokyo's most important shopping and entertainment areas. And this was 2 days before Japan proclaimed a state of emergency. And I went back to exactly the same locations on Sunday, June 21st. That's why there are two photographs. And this was just 2 days after all restrictions on businesses were lifted. So these photos show the Sunday before and the Sunday after. Now, Shinjuku Station is the world's busiest station. It usually handles almost 4 million people per day. And even though the Sunday after photos, which you now don't see anymore, show far more people, it's actually still very quiet for a Sunday in Shinjuku. In other words, Tokyo's business and cultural life is hurting badly. Japan has been able to flatten the curve for now, but infections are going up again, especially in Tokyo. The rate of daily new infections is back at the rate it was in late March. Today, Tokyo reported 107 new cases. That's the highest since May 2nd. This chart is for later. Oh no, this chart is for now. This is good. Yeah, sorry. This graph shows the trend of all confirmed COVID-19 cases in Japan. The blue line shows the period between March 10th and April 15th. The yellow line shows the situation now. Now it shows all of Japan, but Tokyo currently makes up around 50 to 60% of all cases. The upward trend is clearly much slower now than it was in March and April, and no new restrictions have yet been announced, even though we're at the same level as late March. And even though cases are once again rising, serious cases are still going down, as you can see on this chart. Yellow are the serious cases. And this is because more testing is done, mainly on people working in nightlife entertainment, usually young people. So Tokyo seems to be doing relatively okay for now, much better than many other global cities. But business confidence has collapsed. We have a chart for that as well.
Yeah.
Now comes the enormous challenge of rebuilding an economy during a pandemic.
Yeah. So and also it was said that you were talking about that the government is not taking new regulation, taking new measures now. While it's going up a little bit, but it's also said that they were a little bit slow in taking actions in the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and also how people responded to the measures?
Well, there was a strong suspicion among the public and also foreign observers that Japan waited with a strong response to COVID-19 because it feared that the Olympic Games would be cancelled. At this point, it's difficult to say how much the Olympics actually influenced the decisions of the Japanese government. There has also been much criticism about how Japan has dealt with COVID-19, especially the extremely low number of tests. Japan now has 0.04 daily tests per 1,000 people. The Netherlands and Italy, in comparison, do 10 times as many tests. And in the USA, it's 1.79. But perhaps this criticism happens partly because the Japanese strategy has not been well understood. Japan has done fairly well so far. It has the lowest number of infections and deaths among the G7 countries. And although it was a very close call, the medical system has not been overwhelmed. In February and March, Japan analyzed what was then known about COVID-19, and it found that among the many asymptomatic cases, there are just a few super spreaders that cause most of the infections. And it found a big gap between mild and severe cases. So it created what is now called the Japanese model, with a focus on three aspects: early detection and immediate response to clusters, with a focus on super spreaders and extremely aggressive contact tracing. 2, focus on the severe cases and trying to keep mild cases out of the hospitals. And 3, behavioral change of the general public. And to effect this behavioral change, Japan has been telling people to avoid the so-called 3 C's, that's C as in ABC. The C for closed spaces with poor ventilation, a C for crowded places, and a C for close contact, and to especially avoid an overlap of these 3 C's. So it's much more detailed than the keep a 1.5 meter distance message. People in general here seem to have listened and adjusted their behavior. And the Japanese model, by the way, is not without problems. It was, for example, so hard to get through this system that some people died before they were even looked at. And there is criticism in Japan towards the government's response. But now it seems to focus mostly on the length of the lockdown and the slowness of the government's financial assistance. Many Japanese look at what's happening in countries like the USA, Brazil, India, the UK, and they figure, well, Japan is doing pretty good.
Yeah. Also, maybe a good moment to invite Koen Klinkers into the program, architect and urban planner. Koen, can you share a little bit about your experience living through the COVID-19 pandemic in Tokyo?
I mean, it's just like Kjeld is describing. It was a bit surreal. The city literally shut down, going onward from March. maybe April, 6th of April, when they closed down. So I live nearby an expressway, and the sound of it died down because there are no trucks driving at night. It's more quiet. There are less people on the street. I live in a neighborhood called Nishi Azabu, which is famous for bars and restaurants. Although they were allowed to be open, at a certain point, people voluntarily were staying away. And what else? It's like you don't meet friends anymore. Everybody you meet is wearing a mask in public, so that was picked up very quickly. Now, the Japanese have an advantage. They are used to masks because if there is a cold, they don't want to infect somebody else. So wearing a mask was already quite normal. There was also the Kafuncho, which is the hay fever season, which is particularly strong in March and April. So a lot of people are already wearing masks. But no, literally the city was shut down. One of the most surreal experiences was in beginning of May. I think it was really lockdown was really set. I drove down Omotesando Street, which is a famous shopping street. Let's say they compare it to the Champs-Élysées in Paris. And literally there was nobody. This was the middle of the day on a Wednesday. I thought I could buy something and all the shops were closed. Not only were the shops closed, they had taken out the merchandise. So you drive past Yves Saint Laurent, Bottega Veneta, Chanel, and it's empty. The whole shop is empty. So I think partly it's not about being looted. It's more like, okay, we're closed, so let's show the public we're closed. So we take everything out. But that was surreal. It's like a world city where people come and go and shop and do shopping. That's gone, and the tourists are gone. So Japan has become very popular in the past 5 to 6 years. The tourist numbers have really quadrupled, and they're gone because they're not allowed to enter Japan. So I think that, talking about Kjeld's business confidence, the hotel sector has been decimated because of that.
So, and Kjeld also mentioned the Olympic Games, of course. One could only imagine what it means when you have been planning to organizing the Olympic Games and then you have to cancel them. So from your perspective as an urban planner and an architect, you have worked on various projects on Japan. What will be the impact of this crisis of the city on the city landscape of Tokyo, also in relation to the Olympic Games?
So construction industry is always a bit slower because it takes a longer planning time. And once the project is moving, it means it has been paid for, so it will continue. So the projects that myself as an architect, we're only designing at the moment, so I have no buildings on site. But then I also do lead consultancy, which is for green building solutions. And so I have 4 projects for 4 fashion houses, and they're just continuing. 2 of them were supposed to open in July this year. They were really meant to be opened for the Olympics. And some contractors got lucky because now they have more time. So opening times have been postponed till October. But they will still continue. And I've got 2 more projects that will finish next year. And suddenly they're in time for the Olympics. The Olympics themselves, the buildings, I think we've got a lot of empty real estate now sitting in Tokyo because the buildings are finished last year, December, most of them, or even middle of last year. So Japan was really on time. Japanese construction is famous for that. And they're just empty. When it comes to the private sector, I think offices will take a big hit because offices have to be reorganized. Not anymore in close proximity. And it's not only the office floors, once you realize that, okay, people can sit a bit further apart, we can take a bit more space, but it's people arriving at the office building. What do you do in the morning when everybody's standing in front of the elevators? How many people do you allow in the elevator? And how do they get up to their desks? So it will have effects on commuting. Will people come into the office? Are they allowed to come into the office? And which then has an effect on people are doing meetings online. This is a really new phenomenon for Japan. Japan was always about meeting in person, and now it's been shown for the past 3 months that, hey, we can do it online. Now, that's also for specific industries. It's like international companies with good communication. All my workmen, when I have a construction site, they can't do online meetings because in the end, somebody has to build it. So these people have to come in, and these people were coming in. So there's always there's a double layer going on. And another double layer is most of the foreign companies, most of the international companies, they're all working from home. So they've been really at home. But then a lot of Japanese companies, my accountant, I called him, oh, you must be working from home. And he goes like, no, we're all in the office. So Right. So it's still, there's kind of a shift within the Japanese society even. A lot of companies are doing social distancing and working from home, and a lot of them are not. But all in all, I think I agree with Kelt's, I just say a summary, that Japan has been doing quite well, and I think people feel quite safe, although a bit worried now that the numbers are going up.
Thanks. So, Tomoko, what stands out to you if you listen to Koen and Kjeld? Because we were also before the program started talking about Olympic Games and the big impact it has. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well? It must have been so difficult for Japan that they had to cancel. But also, if you are looking at next year, will it be possible?
Well, maybe they know better, but this weekend there's an election of mayor in Tokyo. And the lady who is now in the position, if she wins, she would like to make this happen. And the other parties, let's cancel it because we are not ready for this. And there are so many cultural programs was planned around Olympic Games, so it's going to be again a disaster.
Yeah, and also as what Kjeld was describing, it's very political as well. Everything is around the Olympic Games. So, Kjeld, another question for you. So, what are the historical and social backgrounds of how people in Japan react to crisis and disasters? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, as you know, natural disasters are very much an integral part of Japanese life. Every year there are multiple floods, mudslides, earthquakes. Once in a while there's a volcano that erupts, a tsunami washes away part of the coastline. So most Japanese have this look on life that you accept what you can't control. If conditions turn against you, you don't try to fight it, but you try to accept and adapt. And I think that's a very important difference with how the majority of people in Western societies react. After something bad happens to people in the West, you often hear people ask, why me? Now, in almost 40 years in Japan, I don't think I've ever heard a single Japanese person say that. Instead, Japanese usually say, shikata ga nai, it can be helped. And then they immediately start clearing the rubble. I experienced the 1995 earthquake in Kobe, which killed 6,000 people. And I actually lived in one of the worst hit areas. And you heard the expression shikata ga nai all the time. And I've heard it at every single Japanese disaster that I've covered since then. And because of this attitude, disasters may actually have become Japan's source of strength. In 2018, I covered the floods and mudslides that killed over 200 people in Hiroshima and surrounding areas. And I talked with an architect whose village was wiped out by a mudslide. One of the locals actually called it a mountain tsunami. And he said there's so many disasters in Japan that we're always busy thinking about how to cope. And this architect saw that as the source of Japanese technology. It also teaches you, he said, to never give up, to always keep fighting.
So, and what we all also have seen throughout the Infected Cities series program is that this virus, or this coronavirus, this crisis is influencing different communities and neighborhoods in different ways. How is that in Tokyo?
It's actually difficult to say. Japanese news media have paid relatively little attention to the problems of specific groups, so it's still difficult to get a good overall picture. One group that has been struggling is single mothers. They had to stay home because schools were closed, and they were closed pretty early here. So they lost income, and many have trouble making ends meet. A group of CEOs, entrepreneurs, and journalists have launched a website to assist organizations that help impoverished women and children. Another group that has been affected negatively is foreign residents. Most foreign residents who were outside Japan when the borders were closed have not been allowed back into the country. They cannot go home to their families, jobs, studies. Japanese are allowed to return and leave and return. Japan is the only G7 country denying entry to long-term and permanent residents without clear criteria for their return. So people like Koen and myself, we won't leave Japan because we know we won't be able to come back in. And when it comes to solidarity, I've seen relatively little about people supporting others during this crisis. There have been activities and campaigns, and there are people helping others, but they're mainly small initiatives. A typical example is a group of elementary school students who have been making face shields for medical personnel. One of them has a brother who works in a hospital, and she heard there was a shortage. So she and her mom put a video on YouTube about how to make them. And together with some 100 kids, they have made almost 4,000 shields. And another example is the owner of a wine shop in Kyoto. She sells to about 400 restaurants, and these restaurants are not making money anymore. Many started offering takeout. So the owner decided to create a hand-drawn map of all these restaurants and put it on her website. Many volunteers joined to collect information about restaurants offering takeout, and they even made a Google map with the locations. But these are small cases, and at the same time, there have also been quite a few problems because of social pressure and fear. On social media, for example, there have been quite a few cases of naming and shaming individuals and businesses that are not complying with government requests. At least one man was actually arrested because he incorrectly tweeted that a particular restaurant was a source of infection. Medical personnel have complained about discrimination because people are afraid that they are infected. And if we get a second wave, fears will increase, and this could get much worse.
Thank you so much, Kjeld Duits, for sharing your insight. We will see you back at the end of the program. Also, thank you very much, Koen Klinkers, for being here tonight and sharing your story. And of course, we will see Tomoko later on in the program as well, because it's time to go to a very special break in our program. We have a live performance of Lionstorm, an Amsterdam-based hip-hop duo. They were invited to Tokyo last year to empower women in the Japanese nightlife. They connected with the local scene while there and did several gigs. Lionstorm, welcome. The floor is yours.
Bobby zonder trobby. Een ander woord voor oester is
lobby.
Vissen is mijn hobby. En een visser is een feestje zonder
kokkie.
Knip heet uit mijn leven, noem het scharen. Zoveel lopen knippen, op mijn handen heb ik blaren.
Snip, 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 snip.
Sterke vingers van het knippen. Ik ga ze in je inktpotje dippen.
Dip, dip.
Ik schrijf een haiku op je lippen.
Kom dan.
Luister schatje van mijn tong, van ga je trippen. Ik ga te snel, zal het even vertragen. Ik ga je lekker la 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 laten slapen. 2 paar boobies saladedo.
No hetero.
Ruzie met die sukkels als ik nee gooi.
No hetero.
Als je wist hoe het is om hand in hand met angst te leven. 2 paar boobies saladedo.
No hetero, hetero, hetero. Alasamitaki no hetero. Hetero, 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 hetero.
Alasami wani no hate.
Hetero,
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 hetero. Alasamitaki. Ik ben die Spangen in de scene. Ik zet grote stappen. Meisjes ziet me staan, ze komt meteen een tory klappen.
Kom.
Zuigt wat zachtjes samen oor hijgt.
Ik wil met je naar bed. Ik was net nog hetero.
Wanneer echte seks. Drip, drip, drip op mijn schaar. Op mijn schaartje ga je trippen, op mijn schaartje ga je trippen. Trip, 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 met 5 minuten ben je klaar. Van mijn schaartje ga je flippen.
Laat je niet meer door mijn vingers glippen. Trippa boobie saladedo.
No hetero.
Ruzie met die sukkels als ik nee gooi.
No hetero.
Als je wist hoe het is om hand in hand met angst te leven. Trippa boobie saladedo.
2 paar bobbies. No hetero.
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 Alles aan mijn takkie, no hetero. 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 Hetero.
Alles aan mijn wani no hate.
Hetero. 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 Hetero.
Alles aan mijn takkie no hetero.
It's still a bit quiet without audience, but thank you so much for your performance. So you visited Tokyo a few months ago, a few months before the COVID-19 pandemic. Was it the first time you went to Japan and Tokyo?
Yes, yes, it was the first time. We've been wanting to go for a long time. So when we were asked to go there, it was like a dream in our mailbox. We couldn't believe it. And then we immediately started planning and searching what kind of contacts we can meet there. Yeah.
So, and what was your impression of the night scene and the hip-hop scene in Tokyo?
It was just so progressive. I mean, to be honest, it was more progressive than we are used to in Amsterdam. So we actually, for one thing, we noticed that the young people in Tokyo are super creative. So, for example, the fashion seems to be much ahead of in Amsterdam, and we found the same thing in the nightlife. So the fashion, the music, just the whole atmosphere was so progressive, so free. So that was very nice to see. But I guess we also went to very
experimental or open-minded places, and we were connected to the scene there. There was a direct line, so we got to know a lot of creatives.
Because we did hear when we were talking at the embassy, we did hear a lot of stories of young women working in the nightlife there that actually had quite a hard time just working and being taken seriously as women in the nightlife there. That's a side that we didn't experience, but we heard about it.
So do you have plans to go back when it's possible again?
Yes. Better today than tomorrow, actually. So
we can't wait, and to work together with the people there, because they are able to think so far outside of the box. So we want to go back and perform again and work with the people there.
So where can we listen or see your work for people that are inspired?
Yeah, you can check our work on Spotify, Lionstorm, and on Instagram, @by_Lionstorm.
And you can find our music videos on our YouTube channel, Lionstorm Music. And we actually just released a new music video 1.5 weeks ago for our new single. And we've been having a lot of issues because we keep being shadow banned by YouTube. So there's a very interesting story around that. So you visit our Instagram and you can watch our new video through our YouTube channel to see what video is being blocked.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So it's time to go to the next part of our program. We will talk about Japanese nightlife and about LGBTQ rights in Japan. Joining in for this conversation are Mr. Tak Umezawa, the director of the Japan Nighttime Economy Association, and Olivier Fabre, journalist and an associate of Pride House Tokyo. Welcome both. Mr. Umezawa, hello. You are the co-founder of the Japan Nighttime Economy Association. You're also a partner of a global management consultancy, serving government committees in Japan on several things, amongst others, creative industry development. Can you share a little bit with us how the city life and nighttime economy have been impacted by the crisis?
Sure. Most of the offline events and venues were shut down completely from March through mid-June, and artists and venues shifted online. Maybe you can see one of the pictures. The Rainbow Disco Club is among the highly acclaimed dance music events. It was performed in a rural area with the real audience until last year, but this year they decided to go online. So it was one of the early experiments to earn revenue online from the global audience. There have been many crowdfunding projects launched in or after April. Maybe the second slide, please. The Club Metro, it's Kyoto's leading live venue, raised 140,000 yen from fans, and it was among the most successful fundraising projects for live venues. I did a DJ performance as a part of online art event that was broadcast in the end of May. So there have been many online performance events like this between April and June. After June 19th, the government declared that the most cultural venues can resume operation in a limited mode. So right now, DJ venues, live halls are gradually reopening its operation with the limited capacity and the super extra caution, such as temperature checks and disinfection. Now, live halls can operate with the minimum 1 meter distance and 50% of the original capacity. This picture is from a Liquid Room, Tokyo's leading live hall, and it showed the impact of a 1 meter distance. This means basically about 15 to 20% of the original capacity, not 50%. And that means venues will still make a lot of loss, even though they resume operation according to this guideline. So right now, we are discussing with some leading researchers about potential revision of this kind of guidelines, because some of the leading researchers are arguing that a 1 to 2 meter social distance is only necessary when people don't wear masks. And there is still a lot of argument around it, but we are seeing how to change the social mood, and while keeping the safety of the artists and the fans.
So, and also, Mr. Umezawa, before you co-founded the GNEA, you also played a key role in lobbying the government to revise a famous law saying no dancing after midnight. Could you tell us a little bit about that law and also about the lobbying?
Okay, well, it was such a notorious law, obviously. It became effective right after World War II, and it banned operations of dance clubs after midnight. With the reason that clubs, especially in the late night, can be hotbed for prostitution and drugs. But the government obviously has means to regulate prostitution or the use of drugs with other laws. So this particular law has been unnecessary for many decades, but the police was reluctant to change it. The music community started campaigning for collecting signature to change that situation. It was called Let's Dance campaign, and it succeeded to collect 160,000 signature within 2 years. In 2016, the law was amended with a lot of effort from a bipartisan group of policymakers who worked with the people in the music community and the fans. And after the law was amended, the core group of that campaigning and lobbying founded a nonprofit organization called Japan Nighttime Economy Association. And we continue necessary lobbying to follow up and support various real projects in the field. Last year, actually, we worked with Vibe Lab, Make Milan, and Lutz Leichenring on Creative Footprint Tokyo. It was a deep dive research project that evaluated the strengths and challenges surrounding Tokyo's night scene. And it was an effort to connect different communities of culture, tourism, and urban development. And the Lion Storm came to Tokyo to perform at one of the events we hosted.
So, and earlier you already talked about also the difficult situation, also concerning the distancing. Are there already aid packages in place from government for nightlife or nightlife businesses, or are you talking about that right now?
Yeah, we have been talking with both the national government and the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, and quite recently both introduced programs to support the night scene or cultural scene, broadly speaking. So now the central government has a program to support the culture scene, including museums, theaters, and artists. And the budget was about $500 million. So it was quite substantial after many weeks of negotiation. Also, Tokyo Metropolitan Government has introduced its specific program to support independent artists. So giving a small amount of money who do some performance online and to support their living.
Thank you very much, Mr. Umezawa. So like many other big cities in the world, Tokyo also has a vivid LGBTQ night scene, although homosexuality is still not an open topic in Japanese society. Joining us is also Olivier Fabre. So welcome again, Olivier. So can you tell us a little bit more about the status quo of the LGBTQ community in Tokyo and also about the Pride House Tokyo?
Okay, so the LGBT community right now is, was going through big change. The Olympics was supposed to be a moment of recognition of the LGBTQ community, which is what the Pride House was also working on, getting more, raising awareness, at least amongst the Japanese media. Unfortunately, as the slide here says, it was postponed. We were due to open on April the 26th, just before the lockdown, and we've had to close. It was supposed to be a venue during the Olympic period to show Japanese people that basically there are LGBT athletes and it's okay to be LGBT. We work a lot with the embassies as well to show how the LGBT societies, communities outside Japan work. Unfortunately, that's had to be closed down. So we've had to shift now our attention to the domestic scene. And actually, we're now looking to create a permanent LGBT center in Tokyo while we wait for the Olympics next year, and hopefully if it happens. But it's been really difficult right now for the LGBT community, especially young people. You got to know that at least only about 10% of LGBT people in Japan, at least on the survey of 2017, are open to even their families. So a lot of them, especially the young people, when they went back home, they had to go back into the closet. Japanese homes aren't very big, so they can't really just talk to their friends or have Zoom chats, on their computers. So they've had to go back into the closet, and it's been very difficult for them. Here we've recently just finished a survey that we held from May the 11th to June the 14th. And it basically, we saw how lonely LGBTQ Japanese people were. It's not been, as I say, it's not been easy. 37% said they had problems talking about their sexuality even before the pandemic, but now it's 36 people say it's even harder to talk. A lot of people mentioned how, because the gay bars and the gay-friendly bars have shut down, there's no way for them to go. One thing you've got to know about gay bars and the gay community, so like nightlife in Japan, it's not the big venues, not the big clubs. Of course, there are a lot of those as well, but a lot of them in Japan are very small bars, like 2 or 3 people in a bar. So you go there not to dance or so you go there to socialize, but often you go there to talk to other people and meet people there that you can be yourself with. So closing those bars closing has meant they've had nowhere to go during the pandemic. It's on the good side. We've also noticed that it's been good for the younger kids that go to school because they were less likely to be subjected to bullying. So one of the weird, interesting phenomena, rather, in Japan is during the pandemic, suicide rates actually went down amongst the young people. But then we are now worried that this will resume or go back up again now that people and children especially are going back to school. So the pandemic has been a bit of a mixed message. Some of the bars have opened up online, but it's not been easy. A lot of people are worried that the gay bar community in Shinjuku Nichome, which is in the center of Tokyo and actually very close to one of the major nightlife cluster of coronaviruses, may be badly hit, and a lot of people will have, especially the small bar owners, will not be able to survive the pandemic, or especially if there's a second wave. So it's been, mixed bag to a certain extent, but it's been mostly difficult.
So you were invited in Amsterdam by DutchCulture and the Dutch Embassy in Tokyo last year on a visitors program. Could you tell us a little bit about that experience?
That experience was incredible. So we went there. Basically, our ultimate goal, as I mentioned as well, is to create an LGBT center in Tokyo. We don't have one here, so we're looking around the world to see how people are managing the LGBT community. I visited the Dutch the public museum in Amsterdam, and that really struck me. The fact that they had a whole section of LGBT novels and books and literature, which you don't see in Japan, at least not yet. And just talking to how things are so far ahead and how much energy there is in Amsterdam. We are getting there. I think in Japan, things are moving very slowly. Things were getting better, at least until the pandemic. But, this whole the Amsterdam experience gave us even more energy and hopefully to move forward on that.
So and how can Dutch partners be of help in the post COVID-19 plans for the Pride House and the center you want to make?
So we are still working with the embassies. We are now looking to do a lot of our events online. One of the benefits of doing the events online is actually we can call people from Holland to talk about the LGBT situation to Japanese people in Tokyo. And with this online culture, growing online culture, we're hoping it will make it easier for people to accept it and for people to join in. One of the things we're looking for with the Dutch Embassy as well is the Pride House, which we opened as well for the Rugby World Cup last year. We had a lot of books donated by various embassies, including the Dutch Embassy. And we had one of the Dutch children's books, which was very popular. I'm afraid my Dutch isn't very good, so I can't, I can't pronounce it. But it was The Farmer and His Pig. It was an LGBT children's book about a pig discovering that a sheep that discovers that it's a pig and whatnot. But it is a very sweet book, and we're hoping to get the artist or the author to talk to Japanese people in Tokyo, maybe online now, because everything's online. So we're working with that. And we're also working with the Dutch Embassy to showcase the various different legal aspects, the legal progresses in the world, including obviously in Holland, on our websites. So we're doing more and more online, which actually, while it's been difficult, it's also been better because even in Tokyo, we can reach more than people in Tokyo. We can reach people in the provinces where it's even more difficult for them to come out and get the knowledge they need to get.
Thank you very much, Olivier. And also thank you very much, Mr. Umezawa, for taking both of you the time to be here to join us this evening and share your expertise and experiences. It's time for the final part of our program. We will discuss the impact of COVID-19 on the cultural sector. And we will do that, of course, with Tomoko Mukayama, who is still with us. Also with Yoshie Ota, who is joining us via Zoom from Tokyo. And Meiro Koizumi, artist, alumnus, and alumnus of the Rijksacademie van Beeldende Kunsten. And Yoshie Ota is the chief curator of Spiral and the Wacols Art Center. Meiro Koizumi, welcome. You are an alumnus of the Rijksacademie van Beeldende Kunsten. It feels a bit weird to talk English and Dutch. So we are very glad to see you again here in Amsterdam, where you have lived for a while. So could you share a little bit about your work and also what the impact of COVID-19 has been on your work?
Okay, since I'm back from Amsterdam in 2007, I've been making a group of works about Japan itself, like the problems of Japanese society, especially the problems of nationalism and rise of like nationalistic sentiment in recent years. So I have one example. Can you show the first image? This is a work that I made last year with Mr. Kondo. He's Mr. Kondo. He's 90-year-old war veteran who served in the war in China during the World War II. And he's one of the few veterans who made a big confession about what he did in China, about our cruelty, Japanese soldiers' cruelty. We killed many innocent civilians, raped many women, we did horrible things. And he made a big confession about that. But now he's 90-year-old, and now he lives in hospital, and he's starting to forget his own stories. So with the help of his family, I interviewed him and asked him whether he remembers his own episode, or his own testimonies. And I interviewed and I filmed it. And most of the story he forgot. But still he's suffering from nightmare, which he sees every night. And in this nightmare, he is forced to witness Chinese people being decapitated. So, and he's suffering from this nightmare every night, so he cannot sleep anymore now. So it was and in the end, can you switch to next slide? And in the end, he, next image, do you have next image?
Yeah.
Oh, this is next to? No, sorry. Sorry, okay.
This is, yeah.
Go back. Anyway, in the end of the interview, he broke into tears and he begged for the forgiveness. And so it was a very shocking interview and very strong interview. And I made a video installation work around this interview. And I think this is what happened in this video is very important. Because in Japan, we are very bad at dealing with our dark history. And all those horrors and our cruelties are almost all forgotten in the society. So I think this is a very important work to be shown in Japan. And I've been showing this work to curators and art people. And in the personal level, people appreciate it. But in the institutional level, they cannot handle it. It's too aggressive, or it's touching on the taboo too much, And our colonial histories are becoming more and more like a taboo, and freedom of expression has been narrowed down so much, especially with the current government, very right-wing government. So the situation is that most of cases are done. The freedom of expression has been narrowed down so much, and most of the cases are not direct censorship from the authority, but more like a self-censorship within the institution in everyday level. That's the condition of the situation in Japan, and that's what I've been challenging with my artwork.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, we have the same in the Netherlands. We have a lot of difficulty dealing with our colonial past. But I can imagine that that the COVID-19 crisis even makes it worse, or not?
Yes, with the coronavirus, if I compare it with the tsunami and Fukushima. In 2011, it's easy comparison. In the tsunami and Fukushima, it was more like a tragedy happened, and artists reacted to the big tragedy, big catastrophe. But with the coronavirus, as it's been like a very strange and almost like the whole situation is a bit like a absurd comedy for us. Government is trying to save the people's lives, but we're very I am very me and a lot of my friends are very skeptical towards government, because current government has been having too many scandals for the last 2 years or so about hiding and controlling data, so that it is almost impossible to trust the data and the information that the stories that given by them. And for a long time, we didn't really know how bad the real situation is, and still I cannot really measure the size of catastrophe. Kult, Mr. Duit, said that we are doing well, and I hope so. But I have more pessimistic view on the whole situation, and so that's how my impression as an artist. I have an impression like this, and I'm responding. The situation not like a tragedy, but it's more as an absurd comedy, and I'm trying to respond to this situation with my work. Now I'm making new works around that.
Okay. So, and Yoshie Ota, Spiral is a cultural landmark in Tokyo. Could you briefly introduce us to Spiral, to the institution?
Okay, thank you for inviting me today, and thank Tomoko-san to introducing us here today. And could you please show our photographs a little bit? Yeah, Spiral is we can say the Cultural Institute and Art Center in the center of Tokyo, located in the center of Tokyo, which is very close to the Olympic Stadium too. And we have a very big gallery along the cafe, and then we have lots of contemporary art programs, also the events, and some are rental and some are our organized program. And so maybe it circulates in every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and it's quite fast, not like a public museum or the galleries. And so this is all that we have done within these 2 years, and lots of fashion program and contemporary art programs and everything. And also on the third floor, we have an event hall. This is a program by Tomoko-san. Maybe in 2016, we have a dance festival at the time, and so she is collaborating with that program. And then we have different kind of program like Young Generations Art Festival, and also we have also the restaurants and cafes and like shops and everything. And our institute is actually run by a private sector, a private company. Our parent company is a very big women's underwear company. And so we are not like a public museum. So we have different kind of story in terms of cultural activities. So our basic idea is to learn culture and show culture, but work with culture people like artists. So we always focusing on managing and also the having business. So that's why we are collaborating with the other sectors like public sectors outside of our building. So we provide our talent, and also we provide our experience to the different kind of sectors outside of the buildings. That's why we have a lot of projects all around Japan, not only in Tokyo, but also in the local government and local cities and everywhere. So that's way how we live. And so coronavirus hit us a lot because not only in our building, but also the different kind of people attacked by coronavirus. That's why we have stopped all the activities since the end of March until the end of May. But now we reopen our activities again. So now gradually it's it's much better. But still, we have struggle with now this situation.
So did you also make programs online or try to do things online for Spiral?
Yeah, we are trying. Also, before started, actually this year is very important for us because we have had the anniversary of 35 years. So that's why we tried to make a big announcement and also the big events, but everything is cancelled. And then we have lots of collaboration with the international artists, but nobody can come. So that's why we try to make the internet and online programs now at the moment, and they develop how we can reach them and how we can get the idea from them, because we need the ideas of the people all around the world.
So, Tomoko, as I understand, you also had a project this year collaborating with Spiral. Can you tell us a little bit about it and what happened when the coronavirus hit?
That was my first story. I think it was last week.
Oh, that's
yeah. No, therefore, well, we have been preparing more than a year, actually 2 years, and hopefully we do it next year. Next year in summer.
But how can you plan for that? Because at one point you need to know if you can. Are you just planning like it's possible to go on, or are you also having a second scenario? Or
I think we had a second scenario, which was again moved. So it's a lot of traffic of emails, and we just spot the date, and we ask everyone. It's a mess.
Yeah, I mean that goes for everything,
yes.
But it also makes it difficult. I can imagine also for you, Yoshia, it's difficult. I can imagine that you have to make so many different programs and different agendas, as Tomoko is saying. How do you do that as such a big institute?
Yeah, because of course we have staff. And we have collaborators in everywhere because based on our 35 years. So we have lots of collaborators, not in only the public and private sectors. So that's why we try to develop the relationship first, not the relationship with only the artists. So we have lots of collaborators in the city office and other museums, other organizations like international organizations. That's how we manage. So it's Spiral is not like just one organization, but kind of a platform to everybody comes in to exchange the ideas all together. So gradually we developed all the events and the programs at the same time, but everything is stopping right now. So we have to find a solution, very best good solution to how to reconnect again.
Meiro, you are also a member and co-founder of the Artist Guild, which is a self-run artist group in Japan. Can you tell us a little bit about it and how the group is currently engaged with social and political issues during the COVID pandemic?
Sure. So since 2010, I have been initiating and also involved in a series of kind of artist movement or artist activism here in Japan to improve the situation. And the situation is that 0.1% of government spending is put into culture. And this budget includes preservation of temples and all the cultural heritage. So that means, the budget spent on living artists and contemporary art are very small. And so, artist life, not many people can live from the art, but many people has, second job, third job. It's same in everywhere in the world. But here in Japan, I feel like the situation is not so good. So I've been initiating all these, group to raise the awareness about the freedom of expression, and also to create a space in the society for the artists to So that's what I've been doing. So can you show the Artists Guild? So this is Artists Guild, and also last year we had a big censorship issue around Aichi Triennale. Can you go to the next image? Yeah, and so we initiated, like, same group of people, same group of people. We created this movement called Refreedom Aichi, because we had a huge censorship issue around Aichi Triennale, and so we created the public discussion. We collected petitions, and and we created a kind of big discussion about freedom of expression in this society in Japan, which we didn't have much discussion before. So that was a big thing. And then this COVID-19 happened, and the theater people and cinema people and music people, they're very quick to collect, to raise their voices, because the effect of the virus hit their economy directly. It was very quick. But with art, I think the economy for art is slower, and many exhibitions has been canceled, art fairs are canceled, but the economy is slower, so that it has been slightly more difficult to tell to the public what we are suffering, how we are suffering, how the artists are suffering. So little by little, we start to collect the voices of the people, and little by little, we collectively start to write a letter to the Japanese government for the request for the financial assistance. And actually, from yesterday, we started collecting signature for our open letter, which is the last image I have. We call it #ArtForAllJP. So we are collecting the voices from art world people, and we'll give this to hand this letter to the government in next week. So that's what we have been doing with other artists.
So, and a final question for all three of you: what do you think the effects of the current crisis for art and culture in Tokyo are not only now but also in the longer term? Maybe I can start with you, Yoshie.
Yes. In the beginning, we can say that we focus on online program. That's totally happened everywhere. But that's one channel, we think, and everybody says a bit has fear that everything is going online, but it's not. And as we think very important to physical experience. So gradually we can merge. I don't know how it is, but the merge physical and online experience all together. And then connecting international friends and collaborators much easier than before using the online. So the communication and the dialogue is getting deeper with the people from international members. So that's how we can connect the local and international very promptly. And we, as you say, from in the past, we always move all around in the world, so it takes time. But then gradually, and now it's the time to change. Properly, we can connect all together. So dialogue is most important for art first, actually. And so that's how we can manage, and also we can make some project all together very soon, I think.
Thank you.
So for me, coronavirus attacks a lot, but then for my point of view, it's very positive for me, and so I'm looking forward to having the future.
Thank you. And Mairo, do you share also that positive view?
Yeah. Yes, I hope so. And also, I think it's going to be a big challenge for us. Because even from before the COVID-19, art didn't have much space within the society, and now many people are dying. People are suffering a lot of people are suffering economically, and public debate will be like the focus will be focused on whether we need art. Do we still need art?
Yeah.
Do we need to put public money into to the artists? That's going to be a big challenge for us, and we have to somehow prove that art is still important. And as an artist, I have to prove it with my artwork, and also by creating a discussion with people.
Tomoko, so they are clearly describing the challenging side and the positive side. What would be?
No, I
your
really
vision?
share this Oto-san's positive side. Meiro-san's work, I find it very important work. So it's great that I could meet online. This is a really wonderful occasion, and also crossing time zone, we can connect. And today we are discussing about Tokyo in such a way, global way. I find this is also new way to be connected and linked and sync together. Meiro-san was talking about this new organization, and I'm going to call you later because I think it's very important, because we musicians and dancers, and we should connect as well. We are in Japan especially having too much individual groups. I think we should look for some way to connect. And yes, this is also a very positive side of how to survive, and how could we use this strange occasion to go to the future. Myself, I find the new platform online. So I have been doing with cinematographer, making online series, and that's going to be next week again. So it's in a way, my challenge is more like individual creation, but I'm very grateful I was invited and to meet and to talk to you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that's such a concrete suggestion to also reach out within the artist professions to each other, also because of what Mairo is saying, that it could be difficult in the future also to show that arts are really important, because there are also a lot of political discussion. So reaching out to each other, that's a very beautiful conclusion of this part of the program. Thank you very much, Tomoko. And also thank you very much, Mairo and Yoshie, for joining us from Tokyo tonight. That leaves us the closing remarks. And there he is again, Kjell Duits. Thank you for staying with us throughout the program. What would you like to give our audience as a take-home message?
What becomes clear when you listen to all the panelists is that even though Japan's situation is relatively better than that in other countries, times are especially tough for people involved in art and culture. They're especially bad for minority groups. There is no system to support them. After the 1995 Kobe quake, a CEO of a large company told me that the quake was not a natural disaster. I went like, what? He said it was a human-made disaster because of the way we have organized our society. He mentioned we built right on top of earthquake fault lines. His company had its computer backup facilities in the same region as the main data center. So both were destroyed and there was no backup. The backup was useless. In this crisis too, the human-made aspects have become very clear for us to see. The virus could travel fast everywhere because planes take you around the world within hours. The economy has been devastated because we focus on prioritizing economic efficiency, not resiliency. And the human cost is especially high in countries that skimmed on healthcare and in countries that are deeply divided. We will encounter far more dangerous diseases and challenges in the future. Our greatest threat already stares us right in the face: global climate change. The damage that COVID-19 has done to our economy, society, and culture is peanuts compared with what global climate change will do to us. In a way, and some of the other panelists also repeatedly mentioned this, we're kind of lucky to experience COVID-19 because it exposes the weak and blind spots in our societies, and it suggests new ways of working. At the same time, countries like Taiwan, New Zealand, and others have shown us that early, resolute action by efficient, informed, and courageous and open leadership make an enormous difference. We must see this as both a warning and a learning opportunity, as some of the panelists mentioned, and start thinking beyond COVID-19 and prepare for far more dangerous diseases. We must find ways to better work together in new ways beyond our national political and social divisions. And we must go far beyond what we have done so far to fight global climate change. Beyond. Beyond is the key word.
Thank you very much, Kjell Duits, for this very insightful take-home message, Beyond. Thank you all esteemed guests and also audience for your digital presence this afternoon or this evening. Also many thanks to Pakhuis de Zwijger and DutchCulture for bringing about these series. You can watch back the previous editions online or rewatch this edition on Tokyo at the Pakhuis de Zwijger website or YouTube. Also, DutchCulture will write an article about every individual program on their website. So tomorrow we will meet again for the final episode of this series, in which we will do a wrap-up of infected cities by looking back at situations in different cities that have passed by in this series in relation to the Black Lives Matter protests. Have a nice evening and stay healthy.